This project, the People's Biennial, came about as a result of my own interest and Jens's as well, in trying to create a structure that would allow us to see and then exhibit the work of artists who otherwise would never be shown. So the way that it normally works, like in the case of, say, the Whitney Biennial, is that the curators who have been selected to curate that show go around the United States and sort of pick and choose which cities they're going to go to. And when it comes to a place like Portland, or almost every other city besides New York and Los Angeles, there's a limited amount of time that's spent in those places. And typically what happens is that the people that are curating will be referred by a set of people who are on the ground in that place, but are largely dealing with artists whose work has kind of gone through the commercial gallery system to some extent, or at least has sort of touched with that in some way. So if a curator landed in Portland and had, say, like 6 hours here, which is sort of what happens with the Biennial, or any other sort of big show that might happen. That, first of all, would Portland even be the place that they're going to stop? Oftentimes not. You know, sometimes it would be. And this would be the same thing anywhere else. Like, will the Whitney Biennial people stop in Indianapolis? You know, we don't know. There's no obligation for them to do that. But anyway, so once they go there, they say like, okay, so who are the people in town who are connected to art and artists? And so they'll look to commercial galleries, to museums that exist there, and a sort of established set of art people. And for the most part, those people are thinking about who are the interesting emerging or emerged artists in their given place. But those people, by sort of the nature of the art world, are also kind of like people who have gone through MFA programs, have resumes and artist statements and images that they've put together. They're people who are trying to be part of the art world. So I'm really interested in seeing, and this is something that I've done on my own with not just Michael, but with lots of other people over the years, is how we could figure out a system that would intentionally look for those people, and not to exclude these other sort of emerging artists, but just to sort of say, like, well, they already have various systems in place that are allowing them to potentially show their work and sell their work and make a living. I mean, that's a whole other problem issue that exists. There's issues around that too. But my particular interest is looking not at that set of people, but instead at this other, what I think of as completely unlimited set of possibilities of people out there making really interesting work that otherwise would go completely unappreciated, or appreciated only in sort of in smaller sorts of ways.
So in terms of the structure, do you want to talk a little bit about that?
So the idea that we came up with, that Jens and I came up with, was that we would and this was, it went back and forth between his interest and my interest in our ideas and connections about this, but the conclusion was that we would work with ICI. I think right off the bat, Jens was interested in that, and he had a connection to them to do that. And the structure we would work with was that we would go, Jens and I, to 5 different cities, or it could have been smaller towns too, actually, but I think it's going to be cities, smaller cities around the U.S. Spend about a week in each place and try to track down some of this work, which seems a little bit crazy, but I think we can do that. And then so roughly finding about 5 artists in each location, and then combining that work together to make a show that would be, you know, roughly 25 artists' work that would then travel back to all of those 5 places. So that the people in each place would see not only the work from their own local set of people, but also another set of people. So
do you want to talk a little bit about your interest in relation to the kind of the new exhibition formats that you're thinking about? How you had to shift?
I think that it's part of a long-term philosophy of ours, a founding principle, to say yes to ideas that come from artists that are untried. And so Harrell is someone who came through PICA in a residency years ago, and we've presented, and when another curator was there, and I've presented, and we have an open exchange of ideas, and I think that's probably why you emailed me, because I say yes a lot. But I think that it's a mandate to say yes, especially to things that other people are questioning, and especially the things that are coming from artists, whether or not we've worked with them or not. I think that what was interesting to me about this idea, which at the time was a really unformed, I mean, it was like a one-sentence email, I want to do this thing. First thing that caught me was the name, because I don't really start curating TBA or what I get to present during the year from anything other than a set of words initially, and I don't know why that is, it's just the way I do things. And I had kept saying human being over in my head for like 2 years, so this was going to be this next year. And then you sent me people. It seems very simple, but it was just that first instantaneous connection. And I also think that the idea of going into something that was potentially scary and inviting other people into my process that I now have a lot of control of was interesting to me. And especially thinking about how we would present this. Initially you said, you know, one of the reasons you came to us was, you know, we know that you do things in these places that are non-traditional venues, and that you somehow can find this space. Like, what if we have this in a community center? Not only do we want to reach out to artists that we don't know, but we also want to reach out to populations who may not look at art, and where can we put this? And we had been kind of talking to Portland Public Schools about this school space that we used last year, and so I was thinking about inhabiting those kind of spaces and what it meant to put art inside of them. So all of these things sort of came together in my mind. And I knew that although all of the answers, we wouldn't know all the answers, maybe never, maybe not even at the end, that we maybe could go along with it, along for the ride.
So basically what the People's Biennial is at the moment is a set of questions. It's like, is it possible to go to different places and to do research into artists that people may or may not know about? It's like, I think one of the fundamental kind of principles behind it is like, how do you start to develop collaborations and networks in places that you don't otherwise know about? How do you start to, like, Kristan and Harrell and Jens and anybody who's involved in Portland will also be connecting into Indianapolis, into Salt Lake City, into South Dakota, like the different cities that are actually all participating in this. People are coming forward in each city and just saying, we're interested in this, let's join in this kind of research and development, and let's find out what's happening in our cities and what's happening in other people's cities, and start conversations from there. So this is the research and development part, all these kind of questions, and then, like, how do you make an exhibition out of it? How do Jens and Harrell start to decide what's most important in terms of selecting things? How do you start to create an exhibition that doesn't kill actually the conversations and the dialogues and the networks that are building up between people? And how do you keep all these different places connected? And part of the reason of tonight is that I know that this is one version of new forms, not new, kind of re-emerging forms of exhibition making, where there's less precedent placed on the object and on the kind of like the selection of a particular artwork, and it's much more about the kind of spirit of things and how you start to connect people in that way.